Hi, I wanted to show another video of what I've done. There's been a few changes. First of all, you might notice a UI, a couple of buttons on the screen. Over here, I'm drawing these using IMGUI, and I can basically live edit my code as it's running. So I can place these, so I kind of have a live edit UI system. Also, I have animations on characters that actually do flip the direction of the sprite. If I stop, you can kind of look at the crowd here. The crowd has, I basically randomize the playback rate of these animations, and that is also tied into the movement speed of the characters. So basically they're bouncing up and down. I also remove the feet because what I'm trying to do is make these as cheap as possible for me to create. So I created these animations myself, and it's basically just scaling them on the y-axis. To get that in, that was a bit of work because my engine didn't have support for scaling and animations. So I basically had to add that to the animation import, animation playback, and the skeletal mesh rendering. And also now these sprites, they're basically skeletal meshes, so they have a skeleton behind this sprite. They only have one joint, and that joint is really just being moved sideways and scaled. I'm not actually using the movement of that joint because crowds want to be as cheap as possible, so I kind of just drive them with velocity the same way as I did before, so they do collide and everything like that happens. For the player, I also use another animation. Each of these characters do have different animations. They do bounce up at different heights. And the player character, the big guy, who is big for a reason, he does bounce a little bit more. And you can see he's idling, he's kind of breathing. It's all simplistic stuff, this, so I want it to be simplistic to start with. Let's see where I go. I didn't do the shadows yet. I tried setting it up, so I had a dynamic shadow buffer. It turns out that it's a little bit expensive to render, even though it's just 150 or so quads that I'm rendering, because there are different draw calls and what I'm doing in the setup. I have to do that setup for all of them, and because they're skeletal meshes, they're a little bit expensive. And also when I set up the shadow, it didn't quite blend with the background just yet, so I'm going to do that a little bit later. But I did get it to render, I just don't have it on right now. So the UI, there's something that pops up sometimes, and it's a steal button. You can basically go close to a crowd NPC here, and you can hold the X button on an Xbox controller, and you can steal stuff from them. After that happens, you've stolen their money, so you can't steal anymore, but you can steal more money. There is no measure for how much you've stolen as a UI yet, but each of these pedestrians basically have 5 mark, which is what I'm going to call coins. And there's also, you can steal from the guards, but the guards don't like it, so if you try to steal, you get pushed away. And basically this is just testing action and reactions in the gameplay code. So the way I've set it up, each of these pedestrians and guards, they're these kinds of entities that you can target as a player. And you can try an action. I'm going to try a few different types of actions. And you're supposed to have to hold the button down. So since guards are aware, if you go close to them, basically the action is that they push you back, so you can't actually mess with them. But I also want to have a system later on where if you sneak up behind them, you could steal from them if you were sneaky. But I also want to have these guards, if you're stealing from someone and they see that you're messing with them, these guards would also go and chase you and push you away. And if you're doing it too much, they might pick you up and move you to the stockade or something like that. Yeah, that's it. I don't know what else to say. I did write a lot of code. I did optimize the crowd, so it's basically multi-threaded. It's running on 8 threads. And I did multi-thread the entire entity system for each of these. Since they're running animations, they're also multi-threaded. And the slow part in the engine in my code now is just the rendering. I have a profiling system. You can basically see the main time going to main row. This is updating every frame, so it's kind of jittery. I should really set up an average here, but I haven't done that yet. But you can see that it's not super costly. Post-tick is resolving contacts because I'm running a collision system for all of these. I don't actually need to run it for all of these pedestrians, but I am running it. It's kind of a waste. Anyways, that's it for this time. Thanks. Bye.